Welcome to New York's number 2 sports show. The Rangers lose to the Boston Bruins by a score of 6-3 in the return of JT Miller as a New York Ranger. And Miller actually does score 2 goals. But surrounding that was just another, really poor performance. Now the Rangers are on a 3-game losing streak. So where they really were making inroads to really truly being in the playoff race. Now, 3 straight losses in regulation totally tumble them back down the standings, where, again, mathematically, they're in a rough spot right now. Look, there's still a lot of season to go, right? You got around probably 30 or so games left, but, things aren't looking great at present moment. And look, besides, an initial good start to the season, and then that, really good January, Rangers have not been a very good team this season. And in this game, just very, very poor defensively. And we have a lot to discuss in this one, right? In terms of JT Miller and where he was slotted into the lineup and all things like that. That was a big, part of it. But I'll just start off by saying, the Lindgren Fox pair was especially brutal in this game. And, Lindgren is the easy whipping boy. And look, he had a bad game. I think the writing's on the wall with him as far as his future with the team. But Adam Fox was equally as bad, if not worse. And the big problem with the Rangers as currently constituted is they're just not getting the production that they need out of their top end, highest paid players. It's just not happening across the board. And hey, Igor Shesterkin did not have a good game either. He allowed 5 goals. Now, is this game on him? No, but you could have used the big save from that you never got. So he was not good. And, it's kind of the same song and dance again with Chris Kreider, with Mika Zibanejad. And it's funny, JT Miller comes in, and Miller really hasn't had a great season by his standards with Vancouver. And he just looked far and away the most dangerous player on the ice for the Rangers. And his style of play is very different than the rest of the team. And I hope that the Rangers don't rub off on him negatively, because that does tend to happen. I think about like Vincent Trocheck, who has mostly been able to overcome that. But like Trocheck, like when he was brought in, I liked it because he was a different style of player than the Rangers had, and he replaced Ryan Strome. But at times, like again, when you're with this team long enough and you're with the core, again, obviously, you know who they are. Artemi Panarin being one of the main ones. Your style of play can change a bit. But Miller, I thought, the one bright spot in this game was he looked really good, even beyond the 2 goals. But at the same time, this is a really big game. You're facing a Boston team that has struggled lately as well. They were on a multi-game losing streak, and they were able to, they were the better team in this game, without a doubt. And one of the stats that's really discouraging that was mentioned on the broadcast was that the Rangers are the only team in the NHL to not have won a game this season when trailing by 2 goals or more. So that means that at no point, like if they were losing 2-0 or 3-1 or 4-2, would they go on to win the game. And a staple of the 2022 Rangers and the 2024 Rangers was comeback ability. Like truly, that was a defining piece of those teams. And with here, it's the exact opposite. When they're down, I have really no confidence they're going to come back on that. And the funny thing is, against Colorado, they did tie it up twice off of 2-goal deficits. That was a very, very bad loss to the Avalanche, and one that I think you could look back at as somewhat of a turning point. Although, again, you got to be mentally tough to be able to get over that and just, flush it and put it in the past. But that was a really, really disheartening loss that broke what was at the time a 10-game point streak. And now you're looking at 3 straight regulation losses. It's not good. Let's discuss some roster stuff. So I want to clear something up, and I wish that I had gotten it right initially, but I wasn't totally sure. Eric Brandstrom, he is sent straight to AHL Hartford, which is just better in terms of the Rangers not having to make a move. And it does make sense. He had been in Abbotsford, in the AHL for the Vancouver affiliate, and so he goes to Hartford. So he's not part of the active NHL roster. As far as the line combinations and things like that. So, keep in mind, Filipino, on his way to Vancouver. Wish him well, really do. I hope he does well with the Canucks. Really one of the more likable Rangers that you'll have seen in recent years. But what happens is Brodzinski takes the spot. So look at it this way: Miller takes Heedle's spot. Brodzinski takes Kaliev's spot. So um, the healthy scratches are Kaliev, VC, and Zach Jones. So a very big surprise in the fact that this was the first line. Miller centering Panarin and Zibanejad. So a couple of things that come to mind here. Zibanejad getting moved to wing, it was definitely a shocker. I don't think that I can't recall Mika playing on the wing since he's been a Ranger, since the 16-17 season. And maybe like it was once or twice, but I can't recall it. And so that was your first line. And I thought that, I guess I'll break it down this way. Well, no, first, I'll give another thought. Um, they break up the Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere line as well by doing this, which I'm very much open for and okay with. Panarin with Miller, I think, has a lot of potential, and that's somewhat obvious to say, although, some certain styles don't mesh. But I'm okay if they want to do that. The problem with that is it makes things very top heavy. And now you're throwing Zibanejad up there, and I think that line was dangerous for sure. They were. And Zibanejad's still very, very frustrating, and he, it's just not the player that he was. I would rather have Zibanejad like just be like a third line center or whatever you want to call it, right? Like Trocheck or Zibanejad be like the matchup center. Because you didn't really have that option with Heedle, who was more offensive minded. You couldn't really play that game, whether it be Trocheck or Zibanejad, whoever's more up to the task and whatever makes more sense. I think having Mika as a center and having those three lines, I think is probably better to do. And again, there's a lot of different options you can go with. You don't have to have Miller with Panarin, but I'm fine with that. Laviolette did say it. You got to start somewhere, and you may get a little bit experimental, and that's fine. And I thought that line was by and large good, although again, Meek is still just overall frustrating. Then the next line we'll go to, it was Trocheck centering Smith and Lafreniere. This was not a very good line. You still have Trocheck with Lafreniere. I thought Riley Smith didn't have a good game. And it was kind of beyond just the fact of who his line mates were. I just thought individually, I thought Smith, had a couple of fuck ups that kind of led to really two that led to Bruin goals. So didn't love that. And I thought that line just nothing memorable positively. And then you had Brodzinski centering Kreider and Cooley. And look, and Brodzinski scores, but we'll discuss what happened by the end of the game. But I don't know, that line doesn't do it for me either. And with Kreider, it's just like, it looks like he's playing at half speed. It is so frustrating to watch Chris Kreider these days. His head's just not in it. Like it is so plain to see that there is something very, very off with him. But they did that. So Brodzinski goes from not being lined up at all to now being the third line center. And look, when you throw him in there, like I've said, like he is a very good, versatile bench guy to spot start. He really is. Like he truly is. You can have him sit out for weeks on end, and he'll give you a good performance despite that fact. And then the fourth line to start was Edstrom, Carrick, and Rempe, which we're accustomed to. However, Adam Edstrom would leave the game. Was it the first period of the second? I want to say it was in the second period that Edstrom gets hurt. It's deemed a lower body injury, and he did not return. So Adam Edstrom's streak of playing every game this season probably comes to an end with the Rangers playing tomorrow night against the Vegas Golden Knights. With the quick turnaround, the fact he did not return would signal that he's probably going to be out, and that's not great. Adam Edstrom had been a really essential part of that fourth line. So now that would probably mean that Jimmy Vesey would come into the lineup. Although actually, it could be Arthur Kaliev, although I actually think it would be VC. Because he would fit more of that fourth line role than Kaliev would. So I do think that would be the likely thing that happens, especially because VC has been upset about the fact that he has been playing. I think it makes sense that he would. But that's Adam Edstrom being hurt. I would not underestimate that. Um, that is, important. And then again, we'll go to the D pairs. Like I said, Lindgren and Fox were just awful, an absolute disaster. And losing a game like this for me makes me wonder, is there a chance that Chris Drury still sells pieces at the deadline? And I'm hoping that he does. And Ryan Lindgren would be one of those pieces. Um, because look, you can still get back some decent draft capital, which the Rangers desperately need. So I'm hoping that even though the Rangers this was a buyer's move getting JT Miller, but I'm still hoping that Drury is flexible enough to pivot if he needs to and use the information at hand. Again, it's why the Borgen extension for me is still a little curious for this reason exactly. And look, they like him. He's been good as a Ranger. Like, just because you have Miller for a while, just because you have Borgen for a while, like those could still be sensible moves. Right. It's not as if to say, oh, like you shouldn't like extend someone long term when you're like losing right now. I'm not trying to say that. But certainly when it comes to these rentals, and Borgen would have been one of them, right? That's why for him it's a little bit questionable. But they went ahead and they gave him the 5-year extension. Fine. But when it comes to Lindgren and Riley Smith, those are probably, two of the big ones. Kadri Miller's a restricted free agent, so it's a little bit different with him. But I think, look, this thing can turn quickly. The Rangers, with 4 games left before the break, they really, really, really need to start winning games. Otherwise, like I think this thing is going to be over pretty quickly. They have it in them. We've seen that. They're very streaky, but it needs to be turned around ASAP. So let's get into this one. It was a, Saturday matinee game. What was it? I think puck drop was technically 350 in Beantown. Jeremy Swayman versus Igor Shesterkin, and Igor was not good. I'll say this, like, most of the goals he gave up, there's nothing he can really do. I guess I would say that maybe 1 or 2 goals, maybe he could have had, but this wasn't an Igor game. But that said, like, you can't ignore the fact that 5 goals allowed, only made, I mean, what was it, 19 saves? 19 saves. Like, that's not great. 792 save percentage speaks for itself. So not good. And Jeremy Swayman, when he had to make some big saves, did, especially early. So let's see here. Rangers jump out to a pretty early start, like right away. Like first couple shifts were good. But then after that, Boston kind of takes over a bit. And at 8:19, the former Bruin, Urho Vakanainen, cross-checks Justin Brazeau. And not a good penalty for Vakanainen to take. However, Ranger penalty kill was doing the job. They were about to kill off the penalty until Ryan Lindgren cross-checks Matthew Poitras into the boards, and now it's a 5-on-3. It's a bad penalty by Ryan Lindgren. It's indefensible, and that's the right call. That is a bad penalty for Lindgren to take, and it costs the Rangers. It's a 5-on-3, and Boston doesn't have a good power play. It's one of the worst in the league, but when you give a team a 5-on-3 and they win the faceoff, they're going to, do something about it, and that's what happens. And it's Charlie McAvoy scoring his 6th goal of the season from Zacha and Pastrnak at 10:21 to give them the lead. Again, they win the faceoff. They're passing it around, and McAvoy just snaps it past Shesterkin to make it 1-0. However, a very quick response for the Rangers. 34 seconds after that, JT Miller scores his 10th goal of the season, first goal of this season with the Rangers, assisted by Artemi Panarin. And then Panarin, what was good with him was you saw a little bit more hustle from him, and he was forechecking Brandon Carlo, forces the turnover by Carlo, and JT Miller ends up with the puck on a stick and just slaps it in good position past Swayman. So with JT Miller, the funny thing is this: it's been a little less than 7 years since he's been a Ranger, and he's actually on a 2-game goal streak and a 3-game point streak. Because his last game with the Rangers in 2018, he scored a goal, and the game before that, he had, I think, at least 1 assist. So that is now 3, technically speaking, he's got 3 goals in 2 games, but it is funny, like crazy. And I think that stat, I don't know what the stat is as far as someone scoring in their last game in the first stint and first game in the second stint. I don't know that, but I do know that, like, I think the 2 most recent, I believe, unless I'm forgetting someone in the post-lockout era, I believe it was Alexei Kovalev and Jan Hlavich, both ironically in 2003. Different seasons, I think. I think Kovalev in the 02-03 season, Hlavich in 03-04, but kind of crazy. And that was definitely the highlight of the like that moment was a pretty good feeling for Miller to come in here and score like that to tie it up at 1-1. And then from there, the Rangers actually, well, not from there, at that moment, the Rangers controlled play. And at 14:33, Morgan Geekie hooks Ryan Lindgren. So the Rangers go on the power play. The change that they made, which ends up being switched later on, was Kreider was taken off the first unit for Miller, which I agreed with. Now, you could have taken off Zibanejad. You could have done a few things, but they did that. They had some opportunities, didn't score. Second unit actually made Kreider himself may have actually had the best chance, but did not score. So the Bruins kill that off. And then very soon thereafter, David Pastrnak scores his 26th goal of the season for Potras at 121. And this is a play where Adam Fox let Potras go in way too easily. Like, just, I know Fox has a certain style, but I'm really getting tired of just, again, there's a softness there. There's a lack of intensity there. He needs to ramp it up. I'm sorry. He has to. Too much space. And then I'm not sure who the blame goes to. I guess I'll say Adam Edstrom. I think that might have been his guy. Pastrnak was his guy. Pastrnak is just in all alone. How do you let one of the best goal scorers in the league be wide open like that? Easy goal. And actually, I apologize. It was Pasternak's 25th goal. I jumped ahead there. Pasternak's 25th goal of the season, also assisted by Potras, but also Brandon Carlo at 17:09 of the first period. So that makes it 2-1 Boston. And that would be the score going into the second period. The Rangers only have one win all year when trailing after the first period. This is not a comeback team at all. That's a very bad characteristic of a hockey club. So now we go to the second period, and the Bruins make it 3-1. At 3:39, Charlie Coyle scores his 13th goal of the season from Peak and Marchand. And this is simply put, Marchand beats Fox to the outside. So Marchand has tons of room, wheels it around, throws it to Peak at the point, and Coyle beats Lindgren in front and tips it in past Shesterkin. Nothing Igor could do there. A bad job again by Fox and Lindgren. Terrible. Makes it 3-1 Boston. And the Bruins were dominating for a large stretch of the second period, a really ugly period for the Rangers in the second. They were outshot 10-2, 2 shots on goal for the Rangers in the entire second period. And the first half of the period was especially brutal. So now we go later in the second. Will Borgen trips Morgan Geekie at 16:45 after Keandre Miller had a terrible shift. Borgen takes the penalty. The blame goes to Keandre Miller. Just, he turned it over. It was this is what he does sometimes. Like, he will just have about as bad of a sequence as you can find, and it happens. And Boston takes advantage with another power play goal. This one 5-on-4, and it would be Pavel Zacha, his 12th goal of the season from Lindholm and Marchand. So it's 4-1 Bruins. This was a play where Riley Smith had a chance to get it out of the zone and didn't. And it was a combination of Schneider and Smith. And to me, this puck should have gotten out and didn't. And then things got scrambly. Bruins had numbers in front, and they couldn't. The Rangers never corralled it, and Zacha scores past Shesterkin. And it went under Shesterkin's arm. Maybe he could have had it, but again, it didn't surprise me that it went in. So that makes it 4-1 Boston. Then the Bruins do take a penalty late in the second. It's Marchand interfering with Vakanainen at 18:40. The Rangers would score a power play goal in the third. Like, this power play would extend to the third period, in which they would score. And it's JT Miller again, his 11th goal of the season from Zibanejad and Kreider. So that's actually Kreider's third assist of the season. So 35 seconds in, it's 4-2, and the Rangers made a switch. Trocheck is off the first unit. Kreider is on. I don't love it, but it did work there. And so now I'm expecting to see that's what it's going to be next time. So it's a little unfortunate. Look, if Kreider can, I want the Rangers to do well. I want them to score power play goals. So, hey, if Kreider's going to get his head out of his ass, then I'm fine with that. But, Trocheck is the one that's kind of the odd man out currently, at least I think. So that makes it 4-2. It's Miller's second goal of the game, 11th goal of the season. But a very quick response for Boston this time. And it's Pastrnak scoring a second goal of the night, 26th goal of the season from Potras at 121. And Riley Smith gets pushed from behind, but, not enough for it to be when it was live, I'm thinking maybe they could have called like a cross check, but he gets pushed down, you got to find a way to get the puck out of the zone. He doesn't. And Pastrnak just wires it home on the pass from Potras. And this was, look, he's a world-class sniper. So it's more the fact that Igor had already given up 4 goals and the Rangers had just scored that made it frustrating. So I think a little bit of blame to Igor. But again, to be fair, it really was wired by Pastrnak. So it's 5-2 Bruins here. Then at 4:17, it's a too many men on the ice penalty on the Bruins. Rangers don't score on that power play. However, they do score later. At 10:47, Johnny Brodzinski scores his 4th goal of the season from Lindgren and Borgen. So Panarin actually made a play, and I respect the fact and like the fact. I thought Panarin had a little bit more bite to his game today, it felt like. And he took the puck to the middle of the ice. He didn't have any other options. So he took it to the middle of the ice. He kept possession of it. It goes from Borgen to Lindgren and a quick pass from Lindgren and a nice tip in and the slot from Brodzinski. So again, Brodzinski's one of those guys, doesn't play often, but when he does, he holds his own. And so that makes it 5-3. And I should mention that once Edstrom was taken out of the game in the second period, all the lines got kind of jumbled up, like truly. So it was the lines I initially told you really didn't last the whole game. So I am kind of curious to see next game what they do. So it makes it 5-3. Rangers had some opportunities. Adam Fox hit a post if that goes in, that makes it 5-4, but it doesn't. The Rangers pull the goalie down by 2 with about 3:30 left, and at 16:38, it's a hat trick for David Pastrnak. He scores the empty net goal, his 27th goal of the season, assisted by Geeky. And the Bruins take that 6-3 lead and win by that score. 6-3, big win for Boston. They needed it. Rangers needed it too, and they don't get it. And so now the Rangers drop to 24, 23, and 4. So 52 points in 51 games. They have 31 games remaining. They have their work really, really cut out for them. I mean, things are not looking good right now. We look at the standings. Like, they are just going to have to do what they did in for most of January and just continue to rack up points and wins. And now the Vegas Golden Knights come to town, a team in Vegas that we know is, one of the best in the league, but they've struggled lately. They are 3-4-3 in their last 10 games. This is going to be their first game, I guess, probably on an East Coast swing. I think their last game was a loss in overtime with a shootout to Columbus in Vegas. So we'll see what happens here. Rangers did beat Vegas in Vegas 2-1. So I don't know. Jonathan Quick's going to be going for his 400th NHL win for the 4th time. So I hope they rally around that, get him that win at home, get it over with already. You know what I mean? Because that's a big milestone. It really is. And so JT Miller's first game back at Madison Square Garden as a Ranger. So there's a lot to look forward to there when you forget about the standings and how the Rangers have been. But it's a really big game if they want to really have any chance in this. And again, I'm very skeptical. It was why I was saying that I'd prefer to be a seller. They really got to start taking care of shit, and it just doesn't really seem like they have it in them. Like, yes, they have it in them to have these long stretches of play, but ultimately those bad habits and bad tendencies tend to show itself. So we shall see. But, that trading that first-round pick, Rangers don't make the playoffs this year and get that top 13 selection. They keep the pick. You better do well next season because it's unprotected. I mean, and I should also mention, because it's new since the JT Miller episode I recorded, they quickly flipped that first-round pick to Pittsburgh for Marcus Pettersson. So Pittsburgh, a division rival, owns the New York Rangers' first-round pick, which could just set the scene for something really, really bad, potentially. But really, the best thing for the Rangers would be to make the playoffs this season, relinquish the pick, and the next week it's fine. It just scared the unprotected first-round pick next year does scare me a lot. And so it puts more emphasis on the Rangers making the playoffs this year, but they have their work cut out for them. So again, JT Miller makes his return to the New York Rangers after, just shy of 7 years, which is crazy. Scores 2 goals, looks good, was, definitely the bright spot of the day. However, Rangers have given up a lot of goals lately, and they do it again. They lose to the Boston Bruins by a score of 6-3. Quick turnaround. It's the second game of back-to-back. They'll head home to take on the Vegas Golden Knights.